hear you when you said it.
Well, I'd like to know if it's on.
Gotta be shirts. I hope so.
Good evening and welcome to the June 15th, 2021 regular meeting of the Findlay City Council. We will start tonight's meeting with the roll call, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
Mr. Greeno?
Present.
Mr. Haas?
Here.
Mr. Helmet?
Here.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Here.
Mr. Palmer?
Present.
Mr. Russell? Mr. Schindeldecker?
Here.
Mr. Slough?
Here.
Ms. Warnicki?
Here.
And Mr. Wobser?
Present.
Mr. Russell informed me a couple weeks ago that he was not going to be at this evening's meeting. I will entertain a motion to excuse Mr. Hellman.
I would entertain a motion to excuse Mr. Russell from the June 15th City Council meeting.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of excusing Mr. Russell, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. He is excused. I will entertain a motion to accept the previous City Council meeting minutes. Mr. Slapp.
I would move to approve the minutes of the regular session of council for June 1st.
Second, Mr. Niemeyer. Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the previous City Council meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. They are approved. We have no, I'm sorry, we do have a few add-on replacements.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
I did
Yes.
have to correct the president, but we did not have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh,
Or
my
moment of
gosh,
silence.
I'm sorry.
quite all right.
You may stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Sorry I missed that. We do have some add-ons and replacements from tonight's agenda. Mr. Schindeldecker.
We have several, Mr. President. Among the add-ons, a letter from John Burson, trustee of the Evelyn Hamilton Irrevocable Trust on the proposed trust fund for Mrs. Hamilton and her parents. From Fire Chief Eberly regarding assistance to firefighters grant award. A letter from the mayor regarding a Miracle League donation. Ordinance number 2021-057, assistance to firemen grant award legislation. And ordinance 2021-058 regarding the donation for the Miracle League. Replacement ordinances, ordinance number 2021-045 is amended regarding the Bright Avenue vacation. And ordinance 2021-056 regarding the Wilson Street vacation. Those are the add-ons and the replacements for tonight.
Is that a motion?
I move to accept the.
Thank you. Second, Mr. Slough. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the add-ons and replacements on this evening's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Those corrections are made. We have no oral communications, we have no petitions, and we have 3 written communications.
One of them was just written, the other 2 are reports.
Okay.
A letter from John Burson, trustee of Evelyn Hamilton Irrevocable Trust, as well as her parents, Louis and Florence Berkey.
Mr. Station.
I appreciate council adding this to your agenda. I wanted to make you aware that this is for the purpose of being able to decorate the site with flowers and gray blankets. It does require a simple motion to approve for me to move forward.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion to approve and accept the donation.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Any further discussion? Mr. Hellman.
How long is this in effect for? I mean, is this in perpetuity or just for?
In perpetuity, yes, and yeah, we have several of them.
Any further questions or comments or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The gift is accepted. Reports of municipal officers and departments.
Officer shareholders disclosure form from the Ohio Department of Commerce Division of Liquor Control for Findlay Leon Incorporated doing business as Cancun Restaurants located at 1600 Broad Avenue in Findlay for a D5I and D6 liquor permit. A check of the record show no criminal record for those who applied.
Mr. Slough.
I would move no objection be filed.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor that no objection be filed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. No objection will be filed.
City Income Tax Monthly Collections Report for May 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Findlay Fire Department Activities Report for May 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Findlay Municipal Court Activities Report for May 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
A letter from City Engineer Kalb regarding Airport North Apron Rehab, project number 35210500, as well as the Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvements Program AIP 30 Design Grant.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
A letter from City Engineer Kalb regarding project number 35210500, Airport North Apron Rehab, Federal Aviation Administration AIP 30 Design Grant. Both of these are for Ordinance 2021-53.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
A letter from City Engineer Kalb regarding project number 357-11300 East and East Main Cross Water Line.
Questions or comments? Mr. Wobson.
Very quickly, Mr. President, I wanted to let council know that Jeremy had contacted me about this project a couple of weeks ago when it came clear that this is what was going to need to be done on this larger project. And his question for me was just simply, should we run this through the Appropriations Committee? And I took it upon myself and made the decision just go ahead and have him bring this to council, given the nature of the project and the amount and the fact that it's going to save us quite a bit of money and not tear this brand new intersection back up again in 5 years when we have to replace the water line. So just wanted to let everybody know that's why it did not go through appropriations.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Letter from Mayor Mern regarding Income Tax Administrator appointment.
Questions or comments? Ms. Mayor.
As you know, we've been going through a transition process in the income tax department, and after a thorough review and interview process, Mary Price, who has been serving as the interim administrator during the transition period, was selected and is my recommendation for appointment to fill this position long term. Mary is actually here, so Mary, if you wouldn't mind coming up just real quick and introducing yourself, and council, if you would like to ask Mary any questions, very kindly, you may do so. Hi, Mary. Go ahead.
Mary, since the president's busy, how do we make more money?
Good question.
Thank you and best of luck.
Thank you. So Mary's been doing a great job, and I know she, obviously the numbers are looking strong, and she's been working with the department to go through the process in the middle of tax season, so appreciate her smooth transition and working with the team. She was working in the department previously, is from the area, her family is well known within the community and has a number of family connections to the city of Findlay, so excited to see her appointed to this position, and would request council's confirmation this evening of Mary to begin the role full-time.
Mr. Greeno.
Yeah, I would like to put forth the confirmation of Mary Price as our new income tax administrator.
Second, Mr. Slough. All those, or any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of her confirmation say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Mary, get to work. Mary, I'd just like to acknowledge your families here this evening also.
They're my parents.
Yep.
Mark and Andy Price, and my grandparents, Earl and Mary Ann Price.
I'm sure you're all very proud, and you should be. All right.
Very good.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for coming.
Okay.
Findlay Police Department Activities Report for May 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Summary financial reports as of May.
I'm sorry. Was there?
Mayor had a question.
Oh,
I had a quick question,
Yep.
Mr. President, for the
that's fine.
for Rob. Rob, one of the things that Paul talked about when we got the new software in, that we'd be able to start tracking our statistics much closer for the police department, and that would show up to us. One of the things that we talked about was this report, which is great on all the police department statistics, but we have nothing to compare against. As in, you know, are these good numbers or bad numbers versus last year, a comparison to years past? So how are we doing on getting that software in place so that we can do this a little bit better?
Wanted to make sure you weren't cut off.
Oh, no, I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get it out.
All right. I know that the KPIs are out there comparing historical trends. I'll have to get with Chief Ring about if he is benchmarking against like communities. I know right now it's looking at our community and historical trends, but I can definitely follow up to see if there is best practice for like community sizes and throughout the nation, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, good
Yeah, I mean,
question.
I was more interested in just seeing, are these comparing to last year, last 5 years, just in our city. And if you go further out in the like communities, that's even better. Thank you.
Ms. Mayor.
Yeah, I can also speak to that, as Rob mentioned, with the KPIs. Obviously, that is looking for continuous improvement. At this point, we are in the final stages of the Tyler conversion. We have not been able to build out kind of additional reports. We do have additional capabilities. So one of the things I've been looking at, Rob has been looking at with the chief, is kind of, are there higher incident rates related to specific crimes? Are there things that we should be doing to help mitigate that? For example, street lights in certain areas, or are there higher crash incidents? Is it because of they're just higher traffic volume, or because we need to look at reconfiguring the intersection? So I know we are starting to get some of that better data. One of the issues is obviously you have to have data within the system, apples to apples, to be able to compare it. So at this point, we're really still trying to collect that data to have it in the more granular level, to be able to have something to compare it to accurately.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the police activities report? Hearing none, report to be filed.
Summary financial reports as of May 31st, 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
City Planning Commission minutes for May 13th, 2021.
Questions or comments? Minutes to be filed.
A letter from City Engineer Calvert regarding project number 356-11900 CSO 8004 flat gate rehab.
Questions or comments? Mr. Greeno.
Yeah, Jeremy, I just want a little clarification. This 8004, that is on the actual river, right?
Correct.
Okay, so just so everybody else knows that with that flap gate missing, that when the river rises, that's going to start inflowing into the sewer system. So this is definitely something that we need to get fixed ASAP.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, letter to be filed.
A letter from City Auditor Stashak regarding revenue estimates for fiscal year 2021. He asks that this be read.
Motion from council. Mr. Wobser.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Palmer. All in favor that the letter be read, say aye. Any opposed, nay. Please read the letter.
This letter is to inform you I will be providing the estimated revenues for the next fiscal year in your council packet for your meeting on July 6, 2021. This is the first step required under Ohio budgetary law, and the figures are a best estimate of what is expected in revenues over the next 18 months. In order to meet the statutory requirements for the distribution of the local government money, this document should be accepted by council at the July 6th meeting, so it can then be filed with the county auditor by no later than July 20th. A motion for acceptance of the revenue estimates will be needed during your meeting on July 6th. By copy of this letter, I have asked the council clerk to schedule a public hearing for the night before your meeting, notice of which must be published 10 days before the hearing, during which period 2 copies will be available for public inspection in my office.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Mayor Mearns, May 2021 monthly budget summary.
Questions or comments? Budget summary to be filed.
Letter from Fire Chief Everly regarding fiscal year 2020 assistance to firefighters grant. An add-on.
This is one of the add-ons. Questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Letter from Mayor Mearn regarding Miracle League donation.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed. Committee reports.
Planning and Zoning Committee, to whom was referred a request from Florence Wells to vacate the northernmost 3.3705 feet of the first north-south alleyway east of Wilson Street. We recommend to approve the request of Florence Wells.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion to approve the committee report.
Second, Mr. Schindeldecker. Questions or comments? All those in favor of accepting the committee report say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The committee report is accepted.
The Planning and Zoning Committee, to whom was referred a request from Brian Buck on behalf of his father, William Buck, to rezone Madison Avenue lot 6192, 6193, and 6194 from R3 Single Family High Density to C1 Local Commercial District. This request was previously discussed during the May 13, 2021 Planning and Zoning Committee meeting where it was tabled. We recommend it to remain tabled.
Mr. Hellman.
Move to accept the committee report.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Questions or comments? All those in favor of the committee report say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The committee report is accepted. Legislation. Resolutions.
First reading for Resolution 14, 2021, a resolution approving expenditures made by the Auditor's Office on the attached list of vouchers which either exceed the purchase order or were incurred without a purchase order, exceeding the statutory limit of $3,000, all in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 5705.41D.
Mr. Slough.
Move for adoption of Resolution 14, 2021.
Second, Mr. Wobser. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of Resolution 14-2021 say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
And Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted. Ordinances.
Third reading for ordinance 2021-45 as amended. An ordinance vacating a certain portion of a certain avenue, hereinafter referred to as the Bright Avenue Vacation in the city of Findlay, Ohio.
Mr. Slough.
I would move for adoption of ordinance number 2021-045.
Second, Mr. Wobser. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of ordinance 2021-045 as amended, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
And Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2021-46. An ordinance vacating a certain portion of a certain alley hereinafter referred to as the West Main Cross Street Vacation in the city of Findlay, Ohio.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion to approve 2021-46.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Discussion. Mr. Schindeldecker.
I think I'm going to be the bad guy tonight. I recognize the worth and the value of the city mission. My family has supported them financially and as volunteers. However, for safety reasons and the fact that that alley is used, I cannot vote for it this evening.
Any other discussion? Ms. Mayor.
I just wanted to provide a couple of quick updates regarding this topic. I know we had some citizens from that neighborhood come forward a couple of weeks and or months ago at this point. Hopefully you've seen the email communication and how we've been working with them to resolve that issue. The trailer refrigerator was relocated, so it was away from the residential properties, as well as the fuel tank being secured. They also have placed the order and should expect the refrigerator unit to be in soon, so that trailer will no longer be necessary. Additionally, that road was already on our list to be repaved here, hopefully this year, and if it doesn't get done this year, definitely next year as we work to get that. And we did fill in some stone into that area. We've also had some additional patrol trying to get folks to there were cars parking too close to folks' driveways, though they were not impeding the driveway itself, just a little bit too close. And you are supposed to keep a 3-foot distance from driveways, if that's just an FYI. But we have worked and are working as well with the mission to work through their policy on who is able to park on their property, because they do have some restrictions on their residents. And I've also encouraged them to seek additional parking for some of their volunteers and whatnot, either across the street, at the Napa parking lot, so that it frees up additional parking. But overall, I believe we have addressed all of the concerns that were brought forward by the neighborhood.
Mr. Wobser?
Mayor, have we had any, have any calls into your office not in favor of this vacation?
I have not received any communication related to this topic.
Thank you.
Mr. Hellman?
Yeah, if you could clarify for me, based on your comments, is this alleyway then intended to be continually paved or improved? I thought it was going to be removed and grassed in and made into a quasi-park, vest pocket park, so to speak.
This alleyway would be part of the City Mission property, so we would not, it would no longer be a public road, so the city would not be maintaining it as a roadway or alleyway. It would be part of the City Mission property. I believe that they have the parcel that they bought on the other side of it. They plan to extend that fence and turn that area into park area. I believe this will still be access to their parking lot, but depending on their configuration, they may gain some additional parking spots because of the change in flow.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of ordinance 2021-046 say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Nay.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldegger?
Nay.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
2-6.
The ordinance is adopted.
Second reading for ordinance 2021-51, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Findlay, Ohio to enroll the city of Findlay in the Bureau of Workers' Compensation Group Retrospective Rating Plan and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Wobser?
Make a motion to approve 2021-50.
Suspend rules. That's 1 second.
You're going to have to suspend the rules. It's only on its second
Oh,
reading.
my apologies. I withdraw.
Okay, thank you. All right, next.
First reading for ordinance 2021-53, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director of the City of Findlay, Ohio to execute the necessary grant application or applications to receive grant funds from the Federal Aviation Administration for their Airport Improvement Program grant, appropriating funds, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Slough?
I would move the statutory rules of council be suspended and ordinance 2021-053 be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Greeno. All those in favor of suspending the rules say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldegger.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
The rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give this ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2021-53, ordinance 2021-53.
Mr. Palmer?
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2021-53.
Second, Mr. Hellman. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Palmer,
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker,
Aye.
Mr. Slough,
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki,
Aye.
Mr. Wobser,
Aye.
Mr. Greeno,
Aye.
Mr. Haas,
Aye.
Mr. Hellman,
Aye.
and Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2021-54, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency.
Okay, next.
First reading for ordinance 2021-55, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Greeno.
I move that the statutory rules of council be suspended and this ordinance be given a second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Niemeyer. All those in favor of suspending the rules say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Schindeldecker,
Aye.
Mr. Slough,
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki,
Aye.
Mr. Wobser,
Aye.
Mr. Greeno,
Aye.
Mr. Haas,
Aye.
Mr. Hellman,
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer,
Aye.
and Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
The rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give the ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2021-55, ordinance 2021-55.
Mr. Greeno.
Move for acceptance of ordinance 2021-055.
Second, Mr. Haas. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Slough,
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki,
Aye.
Mr. Wobser,
Aye.
Mr. Greeno,
Aye.
Mr. Haas,
Aye.
Mr. Hellman,
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Mr. Palmer,
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2021-56, an ordinance vacating a certain portion of a certain alley hereinafter referred to as the Wilson Street Vacation in the city of Findlay, Ohio.
Okay, next.
First reading for ordinance 2021-57, an ordinance authorizing the service director of the city of Findlay, Ohio to apply for the Assistance to Firefighters Grant funds and sign the necessary agreement or agreements to accept the awarded Department of Homeland Security Assistance to Firefighters Grant funds, along with the city of Findlay's 10% match to replace portable radios for the Findlay Fire Department, pay for tuition for fire department employees to attend certified rescue technician training, appropriating and transferring funds thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, next.
First reading for ordinance 2021-58, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Okay, old business. New business. New business. Mr. Wobson.
First, I wanted to give all of council a quick update on our strategic planning process and how things are progressing. We received 10 responses to our RFQ. So the strategic planning, I'm sorry, was that yours, Mayor?
No,
You're
no, I
waiting
was
to
trying
be
to
like,
get
"Oh,
wrong.
man."
We're adjusting to our new seating arrangement.
No, it's a whole new world, isn't it? I tell you. So we received 10 responses to our RFQ, which we were very pleased with. Very good companies have responded to help us with this process, and we'll be ongoing with that. With that in mind, I'd like to call a strategic planning committee meeting on July 6th at 5 o'clock p.m. And Jim, I noticed that you also have your budget meeting that same evening, correct, prior? So how much time do you need prior to council? It's a quick hearing.
Typically, if there's any questions that come from council members, so you're all welcome to call me ahead of time. Should you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them directly, and that should keep it to about 10 minutes.
Very good. Then I'll think I'll stick with 5 o'clock as our start time for strategic planning. Thank you.
Any other new business? Mr. Hellman.
I've got a question. Is there a way we could get a sound engineer in here to take care of our sound system? We've been talking about this for, I don't know, a long time.
Need a
All right,
comment on that?
Ms. Mayor.
I'd be happy to provide an update on that.
Thank you.
They are in the process of evaluating pulling new wiring for the microphone system. So we had previously had a firm in here and they made some updates, but the wiring itself is faulty, so we are talking to a firm at this point to get the new wiring installed. A couple of tricks I would recommend is don't get too close because it kind of makes it pop, but we are working on it, so I appreciate your patience.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you looking into it.
That was going to be under my comment section. I don't know, auditor and the mayor both have comment. You want to go? Jim, go ahead.
Sure, real quick, you received, if you saw and if you didn't, you need to check an email from Julian and Grube. They are our auditors for this year. And I wanted to make sure, I got a couple questions, so I wanted to make sure you all knew that it was not spam, and I thought it'd be best not to send an email that you might consider spam to tell you it's not spam.
Oh, you never know.
The end of the letter does say, though, we are unable to finalize our audit until all responses have been received, so your prompt attention is appreciated. This is the check to make sure that you're all doing your due diligence with regard to oversight with regard to our city. So definitely get that back into Julie Group. Thank you.
Jim, will you make sure that that gets resent in case some of us, I won't, looked at that as maybe being spam, and I'm sure I can find it, but I didn't respond to it accordingly.
We'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Mayor.
And if you could, auditor, as well, forward that to myself and the service safety director, as I don't believe I saw that come through, just so we can be aware. Just a couple of quick updates I wanted to provide. First, you probably saw the article related to the duplex and triplex approval, as well as that was reflected in the City Planning Commission meeting. Just wanted to highlight that, as that was the kind of the next step in getting our zoning map updated, working to bring these properties into compliance, making sure we have accurate records. We have also reached out to the properties that are currently not in compliance to try to work with them if we weren't able to identify that we thought they were meeting all of the necessary requirements. So if you have anybody call and question that, please have them reach out to regional planning. Our goal is to help properties get into compliance. We are not forcing compliance unless we have significant complaints. So we're just trying to help folks out and expedite that process and save them a little time and money as well. Finally, another item that you should have received an email on was updating the departments. Want to keep you all in the loop, something that myself, Mary, a number of other folks on the Income Tax Board have been watching closely related to the work from home municipal income tax measure. In March of 2020, the state passed, I think it was House Bill 197, which allowed municipalities to continue to tax individuals that were working from home in their primary place of business. Obviously, everyone was forced to work from home. If they lived outside the city, we could have potentially not received their income tax, which we rely on to continue to make sure that they have a strong community to come back to: police, fire, water, sewer, etc. That was continued to be in place, and that is what we were planning on as we received our income tax over the last year and a half. However, based off of the current House Bill 110 and then the Senate's and proposal for this year's budget as well, both of those would repeal that measure and would allow retroactive refunds from individuals that were working from home and that did not live within the municipality. The House bill allowed refunds just for 2021, and the Senate bill allows refunds back to 2020. That could potentially be a significant impact for the city of Findlay revenue. It's very difficult for us to calculate the specific numbers, given that many folks may choose to continue to pay their taxes here if it would end up being a larger amount if they live outside of a community that has, a higher taxing rate. We don't know who all would potentially request the there's just a number of very complex things that Mary would love to not have to tell you about. But it could be a significant issue. So wanted to make you aware that we are watching it closely. I've had many conversations with House and Senate members, including Representative Cross and Senator McCauley. I know some of the arguments I am hearing from the state level is, well, you're receiving all this American Rescue Plan dollars, won't that cover your losses? Well, there's a lot of red tape associated with that. That could potentially help make us whole, but we also have relied on those dollars, and what my message has continued to be is we played by the rules that you set. It's not fair to change them after the fact. I would love to be able to give everybody a huge tax refund, but I also would love to be able to make sure that we have appropriate response time in our police and fire if an emergency occurs. And when we have an incident like that, we don't walk up and say, do you live in the city of Findlay? Oh, okay, well then we'll help you, but oh, you live outside of the city of Findlay and we don't get your tax dollars to help pay these folks. It's a complex topic that I would encourage you to support and reach out to your senator, representative, as well as others across the state to encourage them to leave it in place as it is We have had enough, as you guys have all dealt with over the last year, enough changing variables in providing the high caliber service and making sure our community is positioned well into the future. Looking back and having to worry about this causes significant issue. Additionally, as you all are aware, we would work through this. I'm not trying to use this as a scare tactic, but want you to be aware that we are looking at this, that our wage calculations are based off of income tax revenue growth. We're in the middle of union negotiations and making sure that we can continue to use that methodology. Having this uncertainty of continually changing and having the potential for folks to make refund requests for 3 years would pose a significant challenge. So, another day, working through it, but wanted to make sure you were all aware of that.
Mr. Schindeldecker, you have a question?
Mayor, as I understood from your communication, this is not mandatory but optional, is that correct?
It would be mandatory for municipalities to fulfill a refund if a resident makes it. A resident would have the option to choose if they are going to make a refund. And so, if I was a resident, I would make a refund. Why would you not ask for some money back? You know, I get that. We would all love to have a little extra money back in our pockets, but we would then have to work through on our end validating that they did work from home. Okay, now we are trying to have our staff of 8 people trying to track down these changes, trying to validate with the employers. I'm sure the employers aren't exactly excited about having to do that, and it would have a significant impact.
Mr. Stashak.
Quickly, I can tell you a telltale sign is the Ohio CPA group is going to aggressively pursue that, for at least from the communications that they're putting out there. So I'd expect that. And there was some consideration for this coming to fruition in the budget projections I did. I'll touch on it as best I can when we do the mid-year review the latter part of July.
And just so you all are aware, they will have to pass this by the end of this month because it is tied to the operating budget for the state, which begins July 1st.
Mr. Hellman?
Yeah, I'm just gonna get a clarification. What was the House bill number?
The work from home temporary measure, I believe, was 197, and the current House bill, which is the budget, is 110, and the Senate bill, I don't recall the number. I don't think they kind of just say House Bill 110, Senate version.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Mr. Niemeyer?
I guess this question's for Jeremy. Is there gonna be a number of streets that are gonna get repaved between Lima Avenue and West Sandusky Street because of all the gas line work? There's a lot of frustrated people down in that area.
Yeah, so it's not going to be a total resurface job. That is asking for a lot. They didn't tear up the whole streets, but we have walked the whole street, or the whole area with Columbia Gas, with their subcontractor. I walked with our street department as well, and we went down through there, and we treated it like it was our own project. How would we want this repaired? How would we do this job? We walked down through there, explained how we would do and stuff like that, and they are in agreement with us. It's going to be a while before they do any kind of the final repairs. They still have a lot of work to do. So they do just have cold mix in right now, so that way they don't have to be fighting stone all the time. The way they're looking right now, probably about fall, they're going to be going through there. So like Lima Street's a good example. They are going to be paving roughly half the road down through there, just because the way it is. They're going to be milling some of the road, repaving half the road. Corey Street, where we repaved a couple years ago, that's going to be a full repave job through there, just that one block. But like I said, we went down through there just to make sure that in the future we're not going to be fixing anything. This was their project, they understand, so they're working with us. We have our inspectors out there too, so we're making sure the job is the way we want it. So long story short, yes, it will be repaired to our liking, and they are working with us. It's just need a little bit of time yet. Probably about fall they'll be doing final repairs.
Thank you.
Any other new business? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Nobody wants to leave? Mr. Slough.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Hellman. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. We are adjourned.
like, do that for the
I can't believe.